If you're seeing this video, that means that we just released our next game, the fourth game already that we've released on Steam, and this time, because we keep collecting genres as if they're infinity stones, it's a horror game. And it's the first horror game we've made as well. I'm gonna give you the quick pitch. It's Overtime Anomaly is the name of the game, and it's taking inspiration from games like, you know, Exit 8, Cabin Factory, things like that, where you have to go and do something repeating and then find, hey, what is different here? But we completely expanded upon it. Honestly, the entire scope has kind of blown out of proportion, but you're working as an office worker in a 1980s era office and things seem to be going weirdly. Anyways, the point of this video isn't to picture the game, but just to give you some context of what is the game about that we did. And the reason we started making this game is kind of funny, because I think 4 months ago at this point, I uploaded a video talking about the top genres for beginner game devs. Like, what are some genres that are good if you're maybe not the best programmer or not the best artist? And one of the genres that we talked about in there was horror games. You often hear a lot of people suggest, yeah, for your first few games, make horror games. It's really good. So I also said that, but when I was editing that video, I realized, like, yeah, you're saying all of this, Marnix, like, oh yeah, quick development time, easy to market, don't need to like spend too much time on like super deep mechanics and things like that. But you have no experience with that. I was basically a YouTube commenter before the video even was out. And we were at that point as well where we kind of were looking at canceling one of our previous projects because it wasn't working out. I was like, hey, fuck it, we ball. Why don't we just make our own horror game and see if it's actually as good, as beautiful, as easy as I said that it was gonna be. So I want to talk about that because there are 5 things that I learned. Well, there's a lot more, but I condensed it into 5 things that I really learned about horror games, because I do still think, honestly, that horror games are a really, really solid genre for game developers to get started with. But I want to talk a bit about the things that I've learned throughout the development process, because, you know, we still make some mistakes as well. And I think the first thing that is important here when you want to make a horror game is that visuals, they matter more to a certain degree, I would say, than in other genres. Like if you're making a roguelite deck builder or a roguelite in general or a city builder or whatever, you can get away with more basic styles of visuals because it's not as important. Like you look for the mechanics and all of that and you go for the story. In horror games, I think visuals are extremely crucial. Now, the good thing is if you don't have to be a super advanced 3D artist, there's 2 main paths you can go, but I wouldn't stray away from those. The first one is to go for what we've done as well, very realistic looking, like kind of like high poly PBR style, where it feels like almost a movie when you look at our game, for example. It looks realistic, it's super immersive and all of that. Or the second one that I've seen, and this is one that honestly I don't understand, but it's working clearly, is that more PS1, PSX style era of like super low poly, and you put like some crunch filters on it and you add like the CRT effect. And that one works as well. And that one is much better if you want to learn modeling yourself and all of that, because you don't need to do super advanced texturing and things like that. The post-processing and the filtering will do a lot for you. We ended up going with the high poly style because that's something that I think I just don't get scared as much from the PSX style. That's my personal opinion. I think anything else than that, I would strongly suggest you not to do, because you have 2D horror games, for example, 2D pixel art horror games, but usually the horror aspect is something else. It's not going to be that quick, visceral, ooh, this feels wrong approach that you want to go for with most horror games. Like you can get it working. Like for example, games like World of Horror, for example, did it, but they take so much more time and so much more effort to make. And at that point, you're straying away from that good for beginners genre of horror games, basically. It's also similar things like Synthi assets. I think Synthi assets honestly are really solid. They're a really good thing to do prototyping or even for full-on games. There's plenty of commercial games made with Synthi assets, but horror games with Synthi assets, I think they just don't hit that well. I think there is a difference there. Go for either PSX style low poly graphics or go for the more realistic PBR style. You have assets for both of them, but really go with either of those two and don't overcomplicate it that much more. Maybe because if you are a new game developer, I want to say this as well, crank the post-processing up to as much as you can. I think if you compare the original footage we had of Overtime Anomaly with basic lighting when it was just in the demo scene and we wanted to see, is this gonna work? And you compare that to the final result with our post-processing, with our lighting and all of that, there's a massive difference, and I think it's visually, it creeps me out as well. So I think that's good. And okay, now you've got the visuals. It brings me to the second super critical part of a horror game. Basically, if you have good visuals and you have the second thing, you're basically good already. You don't need to do anything else. And that is sound design. Sound design is something that I've always said, like, hey, it's pretty important to get sound into your game as early as possible. But especially when making a horror game, that sound is oh so important to scare the player more. And it adds to that ambiance as well. When we had that first draft of our game, for example, there was no ambient sound yet, and it feels very disconnected, you know. But then if you add that like little hum in the background of the empty office, like, you know, the air conditioning vents, and you hear the buzzing of the fluorescent lights and all of that, it adds so much to the atmosphere. And this, maybe you call this cheap, but at the end of the day, a good loud sound is always a great way to add a jump scare in there as well. And yeah, you don't want to overuse it, but hey, you're making a horror game, lean into it. Loud sounds sometimes, or just sounds in general out of nowhere that appear, can be really solid. And music is something you don't even need to worry about. It's more about the sound effects of footsteps, doors opening, anything basically interacting with stuff. And of course your monsters, if you're going to have monsters in your game, those are really important and really powerful as well. So get those in pretty early as well, because otherwise I can guarantee you your horror game isn't going to feel scary if you're playing it muted. I think if you want to do like a quick test for yourself, go and watch some random horror games, like footage on YouTube, like a Let's Play or whatever, and mute it. It feels nowhere near as scary as if you are listening to the sounds and you get that entire ambiance delivered to you as well. With those two easy wins out of the way, let's talk about some things that we definitely got a bit more stuck on, that were a bit harder. And it was basically finding the balance between having a good atmosphere, having good like jump scares and scary stuff in general, whether it's like actual jump scares or super visceral, like weird feeling stuff, and then gameplay. This is something that we struggled a lot with as well, and one of the reasons we made the game Overtime Anomaly the way it is because I saw a game like Exit 8 and I felt like there was not enough gameplay in there. I felt like we could do better because I want some gameplay, and finding that balance is something that's going to be pretty hard, I feel. And I think this is also down to personal preference to a certain degree. You want to have some gameplay, but I think definitely you shouldn't make a super gameplay focused horror game. Like, once again, you can probably get examples of these. Like, I know there are like horror city builders and whatever, but that's not the point here of this style of horror games that we're talking about in this case, because once again, you're making a city builder. At that point, you're working at larger scales. Then when we started development, we kind of didn't work parallel. So what I mean by that is, okay, we started with the atmosphere and with the world, and we could just walk around in it, but we couldn't do anything and nothing could scare us. And then basically, let's say we spent 2 weeks on that. And then once we did that, we spent, I think, over a month working purely on gameplay, just on writing the code for our tasks and all of that, and the navigation throughout the level. And then I think like some basic anomalies, but more from a code-wise proof of concept. And then only like the last month, basically, we realized that we were kind of fucked because, yeah, there was good atmosphere and there was gameplay, but there was something missing. There was something, especially when looking at like potential content creators. I'll talk about that in a second. You need to have a good jump scare moment at some point. You need to have a point where the player is actually weirded out, where it is freaky and it's not just an anomaly where, oh yeah, the walls changed color, for example, because you can do better than that. And I think this approach that we had was wrong, of first a month on atmosphere, then a month on gameplay, and then a month on jump scares. I think realistically you want to do it more parallel. I think we should have implemented like a few first jump scares way earlier, or not just jump scares, but more scary stuff in general. Like, for example, our mannequins in the game, they're not exactly jump scare level, but they still creep you out, they weird you out, and you feel like something's wrong. We should have implemented those way earlier, because honestly, some of our best anomalies and like most scary ones, we implemented 3 days before launch because we had that disconnect. So I would urge you, do it earlier if you can. And I think that leads me to another problem, and one reason why we ran into that problem to begin with of, hey, is this game really even scary, yes or no, is after a while you know how the sausage is made, and it's really hard to playtest these styles of games yourself. Because me and William, we worked on this game, I made the entire level, I know where everything is, I know where everything can spawn, and then William made all the anomalies as well. He knows every single potential like danger there could be, basically both of us can speedrun the game blindfolded if we wanted to. And that's not ideal in a horror game where, you know, replayability usually isn't the main focus. It is more on that first impression, those experiences of getting scared and not knowing what to do. And I think to a certain degree, Overtime Anomaly, the environment is still really strong. I still get creeped out now. And also, especially like when I do a git pull, I don't know what William added. I'm scared then, but otherwise we definitely reached the point where we were doubting ourselves of like, is this game really scary enough? Is this game really fun enough? And I think this is something inevitable in any horror game, because you will know everything. And if you've played the same goddamn level 50, 100 times, it's just not as spooky anymore. So to combat that, we did playtesting, and it's something, once again, you have to do as well, playtesting, seeing how people react to playing your game. Now, I have to be honest, hand in the air, did we do the most in-depth playtesting? No, but I think the playtesting still proved to us more for like the mental being of, okay, is what we're doing here really worth it? Just that people were actually being sufficiently creeped out by the game, they were scared and all of that. And we did, of course, discover some other flaws like bugs, for example, and UX things. That wasn't the main thing. The main thing we struggled in was just knowing, is this game creepy, yes or no? And I think that is something that you need to involve more people with. You have this in every game. I think the barrier of entry for getting a playtester for a horror game, luckily, is a lot lower than for a 4X game or an automation game, because everyone can play a horror game, basically. All you need to do is move around and then maybe do some basic interaction, and that's it. And then the last thing that I learned, and this is, I think, the biggest one as well, the first time that I read about, oh, this is why you should make horror games, was a Chris Zukowski howtomarketagame.com article. And he basically had like all these reasons why horror is so good to market, why everyone should make it. And now that I've made my own horror game, I can see it. I think horror is definitely not like a cheat code, but it makes it easier to market because there is a giant audience for horror games. I think that's a really good beginning point already. And then second of all, yeah, I think we saw this as well with Unicycle Pizza Time. It's so easy to watch. Like, it's very invigorating, even for us, the developers, to watch other people play the game, and you get that experience through them, basically. And you see the content creator being scared, and you as the viewer, you have a good experience for that. And I think that is something that does definitely help with marketing. Now, I have to be honest, we're still before the launch as I'm recording this video, so I don't know what the full-on long tail is going to be, but I personally felt at least that this is a game similar to Unicycle Pizza Time that has the advantage of it's pretty easy to market this game compared to some other like roguelites and more traditional indie games, 2D pixel platformers. I don't know. I think horror is a lot easier in that regard. So I definitely do stand by the point there that horror games are easier to advertise. We also didn't go the itch.io route, but I know a lot of horror game developers who make like a smaller demo and they put it on itch.io, and you just get so many players, so much feedback and all of that, that maybe also answers the playtesting question I was talking about earlier of like, hey, it's pretty easy to find them. itch.io really is a hub for horror games. So if you can, and you can incorporate like a smaller demo or a snippet or whatever of your game, put it on there as well. Now, like I said, I'm recording this video one day before the game comes out, so I have no idea in terms of final wishlist numbers, final sales numbers and all of that. So for that, I'm gonna have to ask you to stay tuned. In probably about a month, 3 or 4 weeks from now, I'll be making a post-mortem where we talk about how much this game earned and some further introspections, reflections, and all of that. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to head down below and subscribe because, hey, it helps me out. And in the meantime, you get 2 videos every week. Apart from that, look, I know game developers, you aren't my core audience for the games we make. I think that's definitely something I've learned as well, the split between the Bite Me Games YouTube audience and then also just our regular game audience. But I do think genuinely, and let me like come a bit closer now, Overtime Anomaly is the best game we've ever made. And it's so incredibly goddamn polished. I think you can see the love and attention put into it. A lot of you guys are often like, oh yeah, you're just making cash grab games. This was not. This was a game that me and William, we both had a passion for. And we really discovered what we like about game development in this game as well. So I think that seeps through in it. If you feel like this is a game for you, if you feel like, hey, this is a game that sounds interesting to me, or you just want to support us for all the content that we've been providing over the years, and you want to make sure that we can keep providing this content, if you want to do me a favor, head down below. There's a link down below. The game is out. It's, I think, $6 base price. If you're watching this within the first week, it's 10% off as a launch discount. and do me a favor and leave a review. It helps us so much. I've talked about it before, about the Steam Discovery Queue algorithm and all of that. So if you could go and get the game, I promise you, even if you think like, oh, I'll just buy it to support them, play the game and you will enjoy it. It's kind of a weird one to say enjoy because it's a horror game. It's not like fun for the entire family, but I do think it will be a good experience for you. So that was my one big call to action, I guess. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next one. Bye!